name's Charles Carey, and I've been teaching guitar and playing guitar professionally since 1986. God, I'm getting old. Anyway, one of the most common questions that I've had was, should my son or daughter start on an acoustic or electric guitar? And other questions in that realm as well. I used to always say the electric guitar, and there's always been just as many opinions going the other way, and there still are. I had forgotten about this question because I've been teaching college for the last nearly 20 years and really wasn't taking as many younger students. And in the summer of 2015, I moved back to Florida from Nebraska, and I'm just kind of relaxing and enjoying life with my wife here, but doing a lot of teaching now through a independent store called Melody Acres Music, and doing a lot of playing. So I've still got a lot of students, but a lot are younger again, and I often get beginners get that old question: should my son or daughter start on an electric or acoustic? And I just wanted to give you some ideas as to what you might be looking for when you go shopping. Not that my opinions are necessarily right, but what I'm going to try and express is pretty much factual, not an opinion. So I'm not trying to sway you, just tell you the goods, the bads, and the ugly. First of all, the cheap acoustic guitars that you often see all have bronze strings on them. And a bronze string guitar, or just your standard acoustic guitar, we'll say, was never made to be a solo instrument, was never meant to really learn on. It's an instrument that takes a lot of pressure to play because the bronze strings do not offer the same amount of flexibility, even if they have less tension than nickel strings that are on an electric, or the silk and it's like a monofilament these days that's on a classical guitar. The neck is generally rather thin. That's fine, but they're harder to play because of this. And the way that an acoustic guitar was designed was to be an accompanist instrument. It was designed to have as little mid-range as possible. So when you play, you have a very big low end, a very big high end, and a scooped out mid-range, because the human voice is in the middle range. That allowed the big folky kind of chords to be chunked out and the singer still be the dominant person. Whereas a standard classical guitar, which there is a lot of repertoire for, there are a lot of books for beginning learning on, and I would certainly suggest this over a steel string acoustic guitar. Here we go. This is an example. Most do not have the cutaway, but they have these strings that are wound with your choice of a silvered or a bronzed kind of a wire on top of silk. When you play a classical guitar, the lows are not particularly strong, the highs are not particularly strong. The mid-range is the dominant voice. No part really overpowers itself. When you play it, the idea is that the melody notes can be played simultaneously. And that's terrible, but you hear all parts. The bass note, when the melody comes in, it still dominates. And when you play a chord though, like the big folky chords, it's got too much of a centralized. So that's not the best thing if all you want to do is sing some silly country thing or Jimmy Buffett stuff. But if you really want to learn how to play the instrument, this is a fine instrument to learn on. A classical guitar. The downside to a classical guitar, the neck is wider, it's flatter, and it's thicker. So a very young kid's going to have trouble holding it properly. Next in line, what often scares a parent is an electric guitar. Electric guitars are strung with nickel strings, which are very flexible. The necks are a little thinner than classical, usually more like the acoustic guitar. The frets are generally taller, and because these are nickel-based strings, they're going to have less of that boomy low end. The highs are generally taken out a little because of the build of the guitar. And what scares people is they think they're going to be loud. Here's your typical electric guitar sound. You can barely hear, right? Well, you'd only make it loud if you put it through an amplifier and turn that amplifier up very loud. I'm going to play this thing just for a second through, this little thing. It's about the size of a lunchbox, okay? It's a little rolling cube. You can plug it in or they run on batteries, and right now it's turned on. I'm just going to run it on its batteries. Boom. Nothing else in it, just guitar and a little amplifier. Now I can play the classically type based music if I wanted to, such as can also kind of do the folky stuff by adjusting a few things. And when you want, you can put melodies on top of chords and make nice pretty solo type music. It's a very full instrument, can do most anything you want, and for the price point, you're always going to do better with an electric guitar. You could buy something like this one I'm holding, which is a Teton NTS, something like that. With the NT is natural. There we go, TRS. That's the model. These are, if you look around on the internet, you can find it for about $450. That amplifier's about $100. So for $550, you can get an instrument that even if you didn't like it, you could probably sell it back on eBay for $400 the next day. Where if you buy one of those $200 acoustics, they generally need about $100 of repair the day you buy them. If you don't get that, the instrument's really not going to play very well anyway. And they're pretty much worthless after about a year of playing. They go on eBay for $25 or $30 or something, and that's generally about all they're worth. I really would always avoid it. And the other reason I always go against saying acoustic guitars are good to learn on is because the strings are so much harder to press. The student spends a lot of time developing these habits of how can I muscle strings, and they end up picking up a real guitar after a few years, and what would have sounded I'm just playing folky stuff here. I don't usually play this kind of thing, but here's just like a cowboy G, C, and D chord. But they get in these habits of just wrenching the whole neck, and it's next thing you know, because they were trying to develop power, they're like, go, why doesn't it play in tune? Because everything you've ever learned is wrong. You can't press on the instrument. It's like playing piano with a sledgehammer. You have to learn correctly to do things gently. So I liken it a lot to buying an acoustic guitar and asking your son or daughter to learn on it is a lot like taking them to the gym and expecting them to go train with Arnold Schwarzenegger for Mr. Olympia, as opposed to learning how to lift weights with a lighter weight, learning to get all things technically right, and then see where it goes. It's much easier to play this. The habits are much better on an electric guitar, and for the money, you're going to do so much better. So that's my opinion. This wasn't a music video, and well, hopefully I didn't piss anyone off. If you feel that the acoustic was great, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I've seen a lot better outcomes from my own students, and most of that is based on factual information, so leave it at that. Up to you now. Thanks.